Last time on Planet Deer, we looked at how the reds of the Scottish Highlands ended up on the other side of the world. In New Zealand, the reds flourished, reaching pest proportions. But then some entrepreneurial thinking created a market for their meat and for their velvet, the live tissue covering their growing antlers. In this episode, Neil Rowantree is down on the farm with the Fraser family, learning more about managed deer behind fences, their methods, their business, and why a Fraser red deer dwarfs others in body and antler size. He's also outside the fences, hunting not for reds, yet, but another mammal that has made New Zealand its adopted home, the Himalayan tahr. Let's start big. These are the antlers of the main breeding stag on the family farm. He is an exceptional animal, not just because of his rack, it's because his genes throw big male and female calves.
Hamish, you've got something quite incredible in your hand there, and this is obviously, you've been knee-high to a grasshopper in this, and you've got a passion for them too.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an example of antlers off a 1-year-old stag, so off a spiker. So this is the next generation again starting to come through. I mean, you see the sort of type of animal that we're trying to breed, which is a long head which still has a real typical brow bay tray, but then opens up into these really big long scoring tops. Most people forget that when you're trying to shift a population, that half the genetics come from the female base as well as from the males. Because you've got to remember that when we started farming these deer in the 1970s, that really they were no better than the Scottish herds. They were wild, had exactly the same antlers. The ability for us to get to where we are today has just been through the intensity of the breeding and the selection that we could make through being able to record and measure.
And just to get that absolutely clear, what you're telling me is there's no boluses, drenches, injections, that's pure feeding and genetics?
Yep, there's no hormones, there's no antibiotics. I mean, for us, most of the deer that are farmed in New Zealand are actually for their meat, which is exported right around the world, and our licence to be able to export our products is determined by our ability to demonstrate that our products are free of all of those different elements. So for us, we're very heavily regulated and we're always measured around ensuring that none of that stuff happens.
Now, most people who think deer farming think venison, but here the antler velvet is the driving force. The harvesting of live tissue is controversial, but it's this crop that's led to selective breeding and the huge red stags that this country is famous for. A world record stag is really just an added bonus. For the Frasers, breeding a good head is just like improving milk yield in a cow. It's science, not weird science, just good science and good husbandry.
Our ability to harvest is obviously something which we think about a lot, because you are harvesting a tissue off a mammal, so we have to be able to demonstrate really clearly that we're not having any negative impact on the animal through harvesting of the velvet. So we spend a lot of, or the industry in New Zealand spends a lot of money and investment into protecting the animal and ensuring that there's no harm or no pain or unnecessary suffering to the animal from taking the velvet off.
And you've got quite complex facilities for doing this, and
Yep.
I can believe that, because I mean the thing I've got from Ollie as a family in the last few days is that your passion for the animal. I'd struggle to believe that you would do anything that's your life's work. So I can understand
Absolutely.
that their welfare
Yep.
is paramount to you.
Very important.
Andrew offers to show Neil how the velvet is removed in their state-of-the-art deer race and crush, but let's get some hunting under our belts. We've travelled to a remote hunting lodge in the northern part of South Island. This will be our base for the next couple of days. Both Neil and Laurent Huard from Magic Safari Lodges will have the chance of a tahr bull.
What's the plan this evening then?
I think we're going looking for tahr this evening, David. I just saw a couple of minutes ago and I've never seen anything like it before. Really quite looking forward to it. Something new to learn, you know?
Yeah.
Different landscape, different species. good
Apparently
fun.
they're the hardest animal to drop on the spot.
Are they? Now you tell me. You should have told me that afterwards.
As we arrive in the late afternoon, our first outing is more for spotting than hunting. Marcus gets us into a group, but nothing is suitable.
So we had a group of mainly females, well I was with one just about mature bull. He was a 4 or 5 year old, really nice, really good length horns. He just was, be nice to get something with a little bit more age. Yeah, they just fed out of the trees below us here, and we got a good look at them there for a while, but it's not quite what we're after, something with a bit more age to them.
I think for me the great thing is, you know, I've travelled half around the world and it is the first time I've seen tahr in the flesh in my life. And just to learn a little bit about how to age them. And I mean, Marcus was talking us through there. I mean, we always look at deer with angle of head and that sort of thing, but things that I'd never thought of until I was told, you know, sort of the length of mane makes a big difference.
Bull tahr are sort of, from age 4 or 5, they're starting to get to like maturity as in their looks. Obviously the older the better, but you know, we've shot tahr.
Does that apply to men as well, by the way? I'm just hoping here. You know answer. Okay.
But yeah, we've shot tahr 14, 15, but a majority of our tahr we shoot a 6 to 8 sort of thing. And you'll see a lot of times when they get 5 onwards, they'll start to get big stripes down their back. So that's sort of a pretty good sign, like a grizzly bear, that they're a mature bull.
Oh, splendid.
But not all the time.
But they will live sort of 14 or 15 years.
It's a very old one.
As a very old one.
Yep.
So sort of typically sort of 8-9s is
It's yep.
it's at the top of it's going to.
Yeah, the nannies will live quite a bit older than that.
The wonderful location of the accommodation means that at first light we can glass from the comfort of the lodge balcony. Time invested here will mean less time wasted on the hill.
So this is a new one to me, David. This is the 7mm Blaser Magnum. And I've had a couple of shots through it at the target. It seems to shoot pretty well. So we'll see what it can do here. We're a fair distance up, and there's a big bull tahr in the grass above us, and every now and again he's appearing in the gaps, and he's very, very wary. So at the moment we're sitting at about 600 yards from him, coming up with a plan as to how we can get a bit closer.
We leave the rest of the guys to spot. It's a crawl and stalk that feels a bit Scottish.
This is in my mind kind of what I expected. So it's fairly rough going, but it's really interesting. The deer track through it. From a distance you can see nothing. Oh, I see him, yeah, I see him. Probably better on the right here for the guys.
Neil sets himself up. He attaches the Spartan bipod to lift his Blaser R8 above the grass. Neil range finds the bull at 300 metres. It's a hard shot, but one Neil is prepared for every day of the season back home in the Highlands.
Yeah, there's like a yellow mark on his neck. The endo? I'm ready.
The tahr runs and we lose him in the thick cover. It's not ideal.
What can you do? He's still got an eye on him.
We think he's down, but it's going to be tense before we find out if the strike is fatal.
So looking at this piece of kit, Andrew, is it?
Let's return to the farm, where Andrew shows Neil around the designer deer facility. This is where the animals are de-antlered for velvet and they carry out artificial insemination. A true understanding of deer behaviour is vital for this to work and keep working. Animals come through here year after year. If it were a distressing ordeal, the deer would do anything to avoid it, and managing a quarter of a tonne of muscle with spiky headgear becomes a major headache.
That's a three-year-old stag.
The son of one of the ones we just showed you.
And when we're velveting, it's usually two stags to a pen.
I've never seen a three.
So all these pens will have 2 stags with 60 days worth of antler growth on them. And then from there, they run one at a time round to the crush. So usually come out of this pen here and everything sort of follows along behind. But all these doors, so you never have to actually get in physically with the deer if you don't want to. So this gate comes around, you pick up this gate, so you can imagine the deer's in front of you. So he's still moving. And then lastly you pick up the last gate and he's just straight on the crush. What we really find now is that deer need to see each other. So if they can see their mates, rather than being isolated away from the herd, because they're a natural social animal, aren't they? So if they can see their mate somewhere, they're happy. So this is why we've got all these pens have all open sight. So as Hamish is walking down the lane here, if he was walking down the lane, the deer can actually see him coming as well. So there's no real surprises, because that's the trouble in some of these dark low sheds. All of a sudden somebody's at the door. What are they doing? But here they can sense their mates, his neighbours, and they can also sense you coming.
Back on the hill, and it's taken Neil and Marcus a good few hours to find the tar. The shot was fatal, but as they'd warned, this beast takes some dropping.
It's been a long, steep day. Indebted to Marcus for knowing his way around the place, keeping us right. Whew. A lot bigger than they first appear, eh? And I mean, certainly the lesson for me is they're a pretty tough creature.
Very much so. They're just a ball of muscle. Very stout. We equate it a lot to grizzly bear hunting. They waddle like a bear. They're just very, very strong in the front shoulders. They're incredible climbers, both up and downhill, and on flat grounds probably where they normally run the slowest or walk the slowest. It's out of balance.
And he didn't drop to my first shot, which I was disappointed at.
That's tar hunting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So our lessons learned, because they were every bit as hard as you said they were. And the piper's back with us. Both Laurent and I were very keen to see tar and to learn a bit about them and have a chance to hunt them. And I'll certainly tuck this experience under my belt, having learned a bit. Bright sunlight played a part, not a thing I'm used to. And certainly reading ground played a part, so thoroughly enjoyed it. And maybe we'll have to come back to New Zealand again if Marcus and our host, the Fraser family, will let us. Just a few moments ago, Hamish Fraser, who's probably a better piper than most of the guys that work for me, struck up and gave us a blast of Highland Cathedral, and he's just about to play another tune for us now as we drag a tar off the hill rather than a stag.
Both tar and red deer are a New Zealand success story. Both taste great and are fantastic sport. One has antlers, the other has horns, and that makes a world of difference. Next time, Neil gets a chance to stalk a New Zealand red.